Brandon will signal you when you are
Good.
notified.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Carrigan. I want to ask you, by show of hands, how many of you think the criminal justice system in America is working well? Me either. And that's why I'm running for district attorney. You know, this morning you've heard from some terrific candidates, and I'm up against some very good people who have very distinct qualifications. But you heard this morning about how they're part of the system. I'm not part of the system. I know the system, I have worked in the system, and I'm ready to change the system. And that's why I'm running for Denver District Attorney. And how do you know that? How do you know I am the change agent that we need here? You can look. I'm wearing the CU colors today because I was down this morning at HD9 where they had the 5 candidates, even more than running for DA, 5 candidates running for CU Region. When I came on board at CU Region, we had all sorts of scandals and problems. We had the football scandal, we had the Ward Churchill scandal, we had all these issues. In that time, we have made some tough decisions, and I have fought for the values that Denver holds. I have fought for more diversity, more affordability. Since that time, the Latino enrollment, just by way of example, in the downtown Denver campus has doubled. Doubled. We've had significant increase in diversity in all of our campuses. African American students, we still need to get more on the Boulder campus, but otherwise we're doing well. And one other point on that, because there was a question about college affordability, Sarah, you asked about it. It has been very important to me, and because I have pounded the table and demanded more financial aid, the University of Colorado gives more in financial aid to its students than the entire state of Colorado gives to all higher ed students. And that means that for families 60,000 and under, it's actually cheaper to go to CU because of how much we put into financial aid. So that's the kind of change agent I've been as a CU Regent, and it's that sort of energy and passion that I now want to bring to the Denver District Attorney's Office. And as DA, I will focus on 3 things. First is collaboration. It's strange, you know, I'm sure many of you wonder, the question I got all the time, how come you don't run at the same time as the mayor? It's a state office. And thus we're running in the state cycle, and I am going through Cox and Assembly. I'll say one question, I'll try to knock some of them off on the way here. But you need to work with the rest of the city government. You need to work well with the mayor and the city attorney and the city council. And I'm proud of all the supporters I have from city council and city government because they know I will work well with them. You also need to work well with the other DAs in the state. You know, Colorado has a bipartisan group called the Colorado District Attorneys Council. It is 21, there are 22 DAs in this state. 21 are members. Denver is not. If I'm DA, when I'm DA, hopefully, that will change day 1. Second point is engagement. I'll ask another show of hands. Prior to this race, how many of you have seen Denver deputy DAs come to this meeting and talk about what's going on in the office? Exactly, and that's something I've been talking about for months. How we need to have the representatives of the office out in the community, neighborhood organizations, involved in their schools, involved in nonprofits. I am in a big law firm. Everyone is required to do pro bono and volunteering community service. I think it ought to be part of the job description at the Denver DA's office. And the third thing I will focus on is accountability. Brandon, it goes to your question. I will absolutely hold those officers who break the law accountable. I too have prosecuted officers, and they need to be held to the same standard. And if there's a case that I can't prove, I'm going to hold them accountable when I can prove it, and I'm going to be accountable to the public when I can't. Or I don't think a case should be brought, because a case should never be brought for popularity reasons because the public's demanding it. So I will stand up before the public, issue a written report, explain the decision, and because it's very, very important that the public has trust in our law enforcement officers. You know, I talked to a lot of officers, and they also are frustrated that even when things are on video, nothing is ever prosecuted, because then they all get painted with the same brush. So you've heard a lot about experience this morning. Let me tell you about my experience and what I bring to this race. Because while some candidates say the only experience is in the office, I would also suggest the question is that your only experience? Because my experience has been diverse. I've been a prosecutor in several DA's offices here in Colorado, and I tried over 100 cases. And I tried multiple cases here in Denver, felonies, misdemeanors, as a deputy DA here in Denver. And then I've been in private practice. And I'm currently a partner in the largest law firm in Denver. I'm the only candidate who's got 21st century law management experience. And what that means is I can take the best practices of what goes on in the private sector on how to evaluate attorneys, promote attorneys, and make sure that we're evaluating them on a regular basis. I'm also the only candidate running who's actually done criminal defense, because that's an important balance. And as a criminal defense lawyer, I represented the guilty and the innocent. And I saw the power of that office. And I can't tell you how many former prosecutors I talked to, including one of my old bosses, Dave Thomas, who was the Democratic DA in Jefferson County. He said, I never realized how powerful I was as a DA until I actually defended people. And I get that, and I'm the only one with that background experience. And it's really that rich, diverse experience that you need to be a good DA. You know, when Stan Garnett, Alex's dad, has been a fantastic DA in Boulder. What's his background? Well, it's a lot like mine. And he was a prosecutor early in his career, and he was a partner at a big downtown law firm. He served on Boulder's school board, chaired the school board. I chaired the CU Board of Regents. And then he decided to enter public service, raised his hand, and ran for Boulder DA. And he has transformed that office. And that's the rich, diverse experience, because I've done more than just one thing. I've done a lot of things in my legal career. And that's why I'm asking for your support of Denver DA. Now, let me just mention one thing, because I'm anticipating Bev's question. Let me tell you my position on death penalty, because it's different. We all support repealing the death penalty, but the fact is, I think we ought to be consistent, and I am consistent. If I'm DA, I will not bring a death penalty case. I think that's consistent with Denver's values. I think the death penalty is expensive. I think it is immoral. I think it puts us in the company of very bad countries. And yes, and I don't think that violates the Victim Rights Amendment. George Brockler, who I have a lot of respect for, but different with him on the death penalty, he freely admitted that most of the victims affected by the Holmes case didn't want him to pursue the death penalty. And thus, there's a clear example of how you can take a stand and do what you think is right as a prosecutor, and that's what I'll do as your DA. And I'd really like to have your support, and I'm happy to take 5 minutes of questions.
Seriously.
Come on. John.
Why don't you have a shot at restorative justice?
Restorative justice. So, one of the concepts of restorative justice is we have unfortunately used our criminal justice system as a blunt tool to answer so much of society's ills. Mental health problems. Well, let's wait till they commit a crime and then let's throw them in jail. Substance abuse. People are ingesting dangerous products. That's awful, and let's just throw them in prison for it. So restorative justice tries to have a concept where we are getting people in the community, and when someone is charged with committing a crime, to be part of that community and part of the healing process, instead of always having the knee-jerk reaction that we should prosecute someone and use the criminal justice system and punitive measures, when in fact there are a lot of community aspects and collaborative reactions that we ought to take to people violating the law. And I think it's an important part of a modern, smart criminal justice system.
Ron White, quick question. You're the first of the candidate spokesman here today to mention anything racial. That could happen in a Democratic meeting, I do not understand. I cannot bring myself to accept those people who did not mention racial issues at all. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to show my absolute utter ignorance, and I don't know if I got this off of a TV show or
Who are you?
news. I'm Elnora Wines.
Thank you.
Hasn't there been federally something done to release non-violent drug cases? Am I dreaming?
No, you're right. And but it's only in charge of federal crimes. We're running to enforce state crimes. But both President Obama has created a clemency system, and also the U.S. Sentencing Commission has redefined certain drug offenses and agreed to apply that retroactively, which means about 6,000 prisoners are being processed out of federal prisons right now, soon.
How can we get that to happen here in Denver?
So it would be a state issue more. For Denver, where the Denver DA's office is part of the entry into the pipeline, so that ideally the people who don't need to be in prison, we make sure they're not going into that funnel. But as a DA, it's a bully pulpit, and you can support important reforms. One thing I want to point out too, Pat talked about collateral consequences. I agree. I'm actually working on a case right now with a woman. I'm defending her pro bono. She was charged with shoplifting in Aurora in 1986 for stealing, it was a hairdryer or something, 15 grand. It still impacts her ability to have a job. Can you believe that? I can't either. That's why I'm using my time and representing her for free to get that case sealed so it won't impact her life.
Yeah, get about a couple. Who hasn't had it? Go ahead, Walker.
I'd like to know your opinion of the highest incarceration rate in the world being in our country, and what part does the DA's office play in that?
It's a good question about the mass incarceration rate. I did hear the sort of a hypothetical, is that serving our, earlier today, a hypothetical of, is that serving our criminal justice system well? Of course not. Of course not. It's not making us safer. It's costing us a lot of money, and the Denver DA's office can focus on making sure the right people are in jail. Not people who have nonviolent offenses, not people just because they missed one court date, so you need to address bond, make sure we're using a smart, modern approach to bonding, because right now, we have in many ways, we're getting better in Colorado, but we have an 18th century system that if you're wealthy, you're not a threat, because you can put up money. If you're poor, you are a threat. And I just want to go back to who's the change agent in this race. You heard some names this morning. I want to mention people who are supporting me and endorsing me include Wellington Webb, Ken Salazar, and Dave Machado. They've all endorsed me, and they want me to be Denver's next district attorney.
Alice Westman, what would you do differently to
Project backwards. Okay.
what are your ideas on handling juvenile offenders differently than the current DA is doing?
Well, what we absolutely need to do, and my time's running out, so I'll be succinct here. The problem is with the juvenile criminal justice system is study after study shows that once they've been incarcerated, they never go back. Well, they do go back, but it affects them for the rest of their life. They're risk for recidivism, and also being a victim of crime. And I'm going to close with one thing, because what the Denver DA needs to know, and I want to respect all your time, is we need to make sure that kids are put behind bars only when they're serious risk to themselves or to others. And I'll give you one quick example. When I was a prosecutor, there was a 10-year-old boy who broke into a neighbor's home to steal a video game with a friend of his. His dad bought him, busted him out, grounded him, but he was free. He did it again. And Dad said, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to leave you in juvie. See what you think. Guess what happened? He got essentially assaulted by another man. Dad came to court, tears streaming down his face. I'll never forget. We got that kid out of there in a home so quickly. But because of that, because this kid was stealing video games, his life went insane. And that's something we really have to fix. Thank you so much for your time. We're having December 5th, Representative Garnett and a bunch of your neighbors are having a house party near DU. Please let us know. We'd love you to come. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.